Welcome, sports fans, to a quick episode of Ugly Thirds. I'm here with John and Trems. Gentlemen, what are we going to talk about?
So there is a lawsuit against the Seattle Kraken because of this jersey and logo, and we've gotten enough comments. Figured we might as well comment on it, though none of us are lawyers and none of us have any actual legal anything.
So our topic today is the lawsuit, which honestly, this is the first time I've heard about this until today, but it's very interesting. So I want to take on what's going on.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I've looked on YouTube before this. There's only two videos done by somebody about this lawsuit. One's 16 minutes and one's 8 minutes. So if we can do better than that, I think we'll be in good shape.
So it's all been broke by Jeff Baker of the Seattle Times. This is where all the research was done. This is where the real journalism happened. Everyone else is basing what they're doing off of this story. So local news, super important. We are commenting on it like everyone from Sports Illustrated down to UniWatch blog. Essentially, it seems that a man named Paul Kim had bought the rights to the Seattle Metropolitans everything, the trademarks to it, back in 2017.
Let's talk about that for a second. How bizarre is it that you can actually do something like that?
Bill, do you want to pull up his website, those slides?
In thinking about it, like
Yeah. So I mean, just think of, I guess, if the trademark expired, it's 100 years, right?
No, you're thinking of public domain and copyright, which is different, and I'm not entirely. Trademarks involve how it's being used, and a copyright is just in an invention, is how it's supposed to go. There's a lot of there's a reason why people spend their whole lives studying this in law. So let's not get deep into that, because I guarantee that there are things that I will get wrong. But this is his website, and he also has a merch store, which I think is the next slide, Phil. Yeah, selling these jerseys along with T-shirts and hats and all the other. And he's been doing this for about 5 years. All right, you can bring it back to us. I think we can discuss for a little.
But well before the Kraken were the Kraken, or the idea of the Kraken even existed.
Correct. But 3 years before?
Oh, well, yeah, well
27, 2018 is when they finally officially said they were going to have a team. So at least 2 or 3 years before the actual.
I mean, he might have jumped on board whenever they said that there's going to be a team, but I mean, why wouldn't you? And it's not like he was just grabbing the trademark and sitting on it hoping that Seattle would have to buy it. He was using it. He was using it and selling merch. This is how you get a proper Kraken jersey without going to some really shady places. Or not Kraken, a real Metropolitan jersey without going to a bunch of shady places.
Which we'll find out in a future video, because I did purchase one just to see what it looks like. Because why not? So
I will lodge a complaint if you want to go to the last slide, Phil.
Well, I'm not sharing the slides, so.
Well, go to the last slide and then share it. Not that one, the next slide. Because you were impressed that they actually have a whole history here of every game, and
You've
done a good job.
I was impressed. They had all the results from the whole season for as long as they were there, and the date, the scores. Like, I was impressed by that. Like, okay.
Now, I have found 3 different Seattle Metropolitans uniform. Note the shoulders. The one on the left is game worn red shoulders. The image at the top, clearly those are white shoulders, and then the colorized image on the right is green shoulders with the. But just look, none of those match the jersey he's made, and I've yet to find one that actually matches any of those. So I don't know why there's such discrepancy in all of this when it shouldn't be that difficult. But I digress. And I look forward to Phil actually getting one of these. We will do a full unboxing and look at it in depth. But that's not the point of this video. That critiquing his design is not the point of this video, though that slide might come back when we talk about Phil's. Anyways, I think you can come back to us.
Okay.
So he has had this since 2017 as a trademark. And the lawsuit claims that the Kraken logo and look is virtually identical to his trademarks. That the Kraken had come to him on a couple different. There have been times where he has worked with the team and signed off on things. He signed off on when I think it was there was a Seattle team that used a Metropolitans jersey as a throwback. He signed off on that. I also believe that he did sell the rights in Canada for this trademark, but those are two separate things, Canada and the United States. He said the Kraken came with low ball efforts, asking him to license the Seattle Metropolitans looks, trademarks, etc. That they offered him a 5% of net sales with no minimums, which is well below the norm, which they cite as between 12 to 15% typically, and usually have some minimums along with options on online sales and other places. And he has rejected these offers. Since he rejected those offers, the Kraken have also put up a banner to the Metropolitans using the S from the Metropolitans, and that the team has made no effort to distance themselves from the original Metropolitans team, have used the S and the historical stuff within their marketing and in arena videos and so on. It gets really strange because where does it go with history? Like, as far as I look at it, it's history. And anything historical should not be like, oh, it's clamped down. You can't use any of the stuff that existed. But apparently that's not the law, especially when it comes to stuff that you might be selling.
I guess my question would be, if they've branched out from the original look so much so that you can't say it's an exact carbon copy, then Seattle has done nothing wrong. They've used it as inspiration. However, they're not using the exact, I mean, you could make an argument for the S itself, but if there's enough differentiation there, it could very well be like they're using the Kraken logo as the S, correct? They're not using the original logo.
Correct. In fact,
So,
Phil, if you want to pull up those two logos, that might be a good time to do it.
Already ahead of you.
Those are the two logos in question.
it is the Seattle Kraken logo.
And as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's any real similarities there. Can you trademark simply letters being within an S? Well, I don't think so.
It's an inspiration. It's not. You can't be. Oh, I was inspired to do it this way, so I did it based off that. Like, it's an S. It's nothing fantastic, like new. It's a letter. And has the name on it. Doesn't have the city, which then can you trademark a city name on a jersey?
That's all. I mean, look, it would not be the city name itself. It would be the how it was stylized, right? It would be how it's shown. In the same way, you can't copyright a really, really old piece. So you can't copyright like a Beethoven, but you can copyright your performance of a Beethoven. Trademark copy. I think it's copyright. Anyways, if it had said Seattle in that zigzag, that might be infringing on the copyright. But with Kraken, I don't think it is.
I think they've done enough to distance themselves from that original look to where you're going to have a hard time making an argument that this is a copyright infringement issue. It would have been cool to see the original with current markups and things like that. Had they come together on an agreement, it'd be cool to see what they could have done. I think you would have seen a lot more striping, like a barber pole, kind of like what you're wearing, John.
Right. Can you copyright just a barber pole? And again, Seattle really has not worn this is not a proper, it's very, very chunky stripe comparison. I really wanted the straight throwback. And I said that when they unveiled it, that I really wanted that straight throw, but this was the time to do it. Now we understand why they didn't. Like, there's a lot. This was not a design decision. This was a business decision, and someone who did not want to let go of their trademark, or Seattle who didn't want to pay up for their trade. It depends on who you ask in this situation. I really wish they would have. I really, really, really wish they would have.
It also makes you wonder, is this the reason why we've never seen Metropolitan branding anywhere else, like the NHL store or the Adidas throwbacks or the Fanatics, whatever they do?
Guarantee it is.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah,
why
yeah.
their reverse retro was kind of like we expected a Metropolitan reverse retro, and like, well, they might have been trying to figure it out and they couldn't, so they're like, well, we'll pass the buck to the Winter Classic, and then okay, we're Seattle, we're a big, $1 billion worth franchise, come at us, I guess. Like, it's kind of one of those like, all right, you didn't want to work with us, so go ahead. Probably settling in court in the end is going to be cheaper than the payout that they were going to give them in the long run.
And that's so likely they're going to settle this out of court. Unless a judge looks at this and says there's no merit and throws it out, which is entirely possible. Of just a judge looks and says no, there's nothing, and the guy can't appeal. But I don't know how far one can appeal. And again, an appeals court has to pick it up and say no, you're right. There is something worthwhile here. So I get the feeling that he gets paid off with a settlement out of court, and I hope for the fans, for collectors, that means that Seattle will then get the use of this stuff. So, if we are paying you a settlement, then we are also licensing at the same time. I would think that would be like the way to do this, and then they can use it later, and maybe it does get used later, maybe it is the inspiration for a third jersey or a one-off or something. Who knows what's coming? That's the best case scenario in my mind.
There definitely is money to be made in this situation where they can work together, but 5% of what could be sold, um, with all the fakes out there now and everything, how easy it is to get a cheap jersey from China, I can understand why 5% is considered a low ball. How many people are buying retail jerseys from the arena or from Fanatics or Adidas or their NHL shop? Like, I understand his perspective too. Like, 5% in the grand scheme of things in this market, it's not a lot.
Not what it should be for his investment, I would think.
Yep.
Yeah. And if there's no guarantee, like, and if he's talking about there's no guarantees in online sales or option, like it may in-store sales is going to be just a fraction of the actual sales. I mean, we all bought them
Right.
online, right? And if that's not included in his numbers, well, that is, I mean, that's not fair.
No, it's one of those things where this was so quiet for so long, and now I imagine as they settle out of court, it's going to remain relatively quiet too. So we may not hear a full resolution of this publicly because most things settle out of court. You never hear of amounts or deals or anything like that.
I would hope we get some positive things out of it as fans. There's obviously no guarantee that happens. And then does he deserve to be paid out for it? I don't know. Like, I wrestle. I mean, clearly he went in, well before the team, bought the stuff, has been using the trademark. He's not just trolling. But I also don't think the Kraken actually infringed.
This is where I imagine you spend 8 years at law school trying to nitpick and find the very fine print of this whole thing to make an argument for one side or the other. I'm kind of on board with you as well. I think they've done enough to distance themselves. People know it's paying homage to the Metropolitans, but it's not. Well, I'm looking at the collar effect on your jersey right now.
That is another thing that was cited.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that there is a throwback element to this, but ooh, that's tricky.
Which is why a settlement is likely. Really interesting,
yeah,
because there's like you could drag this out and fight it, and even if you win, everyone's losing money.
It's not a surprise to either side because they have been talking and agreeing on things and disagreeing on things up until this point. So I imagine before they put this out there, they had to have a long conversation with a lot of important people to where they can confidently say, like, hey, this is the look we're going with, and it should be enough to distance itself from everybody else and the Metropolitans' original look. So I imagine they didn't just create it and just wing it, hope for the best. I imagine a lot of thought went into this.
I would agree with that. I would think a lot of lawyers signed off on this before it got this far.
And I'd be curious what is what's his number? If the Kraken came to me, hey, we're gonna give you $6 million, sell us the trademark. Like, what is that magic number? Is that cheaper than a settlement? Like,
It probably was. Is it still? Is probably a
well,
better
yeah.
question.
Now that it's reaching news level, like it's gonna get some, notoriety here. But I mean, the Winter Classic tickets sold out like that. The merchandise went like that. Like my jersey, like I got that jersey. I went to return it. They have no jerseys left at that store. Like it flew off the shelves. They have money to burn. So it's like, do you have enough to end this spat?
They should have, and they didn't. And so I guess some of that corporate greed is certainly part of this.
And
But,
is it the NHL or is it the ownership group now that has to worry about it?
well, it's yes.
Shouldn't the NHL, if they're worried about their history and remembering the team, like this was the first U.S. team to win the cup, right?
Yeah.
So why wasn't the NHL worried about their trademarks more? And like they're selling how many Quebec Nordique jerseys or
the Whalers now that they have that trademark back.
Right, like they're selling a ton of these throwbacks. Like, why wasn't this on their radar? Like Seattle's been a talk for how many years as being a team. They finally get one. It didn't like this is bad planning on the NHL. Like they should have bought the trademark before what's the gentleman's name? I don't want to say.
Oh yeah, Paul Kim. Yeah, no, they should have. They should have done
They
it.
should have done it, and they didn't.
It wasn't an NHL team, to be fair, which I imagine also complicated. Well, were the rights simply out there and they should have bought them? Yeah, especially as soon as they looked at Seattle as a market, they should have bought the name.
It makes you wonder if there was other markets being discussed up until the last minute to where they didn't feel like they needed to go so far into trademarking the Metropolitans and saw it as a waste of money. Was Seattle something that they had their eye on and this was just an oversight, or was it something to where they were down to 2 or 3 other options and decided at this last minute and just purely just didn't look at where this could potentially go?
Look at the NHL poorly planning things. I'm not shocked.
I'm surprised in something history based with the NHL that they haven't explained very well. That's something that we've covered over and over again too.
I know. Gary Bettman, give me a call.
You mean they haven't learned like that third team potentially going in Atlanta? Like you're telling
I was trying not to mention it, Phil.
I will because it's so stupid. But they want to burn money. Give me the money.
They're good at that. They're good at that. All right. Well, I mean, I don't know that there's any more to add on this except that's the story. That's the compare. You want to put up the logo one more time, Phil?
The logo comparison?
Yes, please. This is the question. Are those two logos too similar and therefore a trademark infringement? And that's combined with everything else around it and any marketing that Seattle puts into it. Are they attaching it to the Metropolitans too much to infringe on that trademark? And that's the question that lawyers are working to decide right now. So we have our opinions, but that doesn't mean anything because we are not attorneys. We are not lawyers. We are not trained.
I went to school long enough to be an attorney, if that counts for anything.
I think we all did.
Unfortunately not.
I should see because my cousin's a lawyer. I should see if he what his.
Yeah, but even then, there's a reason.
Specialized. I know, but I mean, he was maybe.
We'll wait for Legal Eagle to weigh in on this. Okay, so I guess that's gonna wrap it up before we end up getting another 25-minute video here. For He's Shrems, I'm John. Phil, you want to take us out?
Sure. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notifications of new videos when they get posted, and tune in for another episode of Ugly Thirds.